Actually, the Rebbe was crying at different points in the Maimer. But primarily he was crying when he spoke about the Frierdiker Rebbe passing away. And he said that the tests, the difficulties, the darkness before the Rebbe passed away, you would think was enough already. But obviously it wasn't. And we had to have the additional darkness of the Rebbe passing away. And that's when the Rebbe, you can actually hear the Rebbe is not just choked up, but actually crying. And then the Rebbe's ability to get back under control and continue speaking, like in a few seconds he turns it around and so of course that makes that story even more meaningful. The Rebbe is crying because the Frierdiker Rebbe passed away on Yud Shvat, and we're listening to it on Yud Shvat after the Rebbe passes away. So it was a big favor of Rabbi Klein to actually do this, because some people don't think it's meant for public knowledge. So in the Maimer, the Frierdiker Rebbe said that the Medrash on the Posuk Basi Legani Achisi Kala, that the Medrash says that it doesn't say Gan, it says Gani. That the world was the Eibishter's place to begin with. But where is that Medrash? So there are actually two places in the Medrash where it gives this explanation of the Pasuk. But in one of them, on the Pasuk itself, the Medrash not only gives the Pirush, but tells who said it. And what it says in the Medrash is that the author of this statement, Omar Menachem Chosnei, Menachem, his son-in-law, said this. So the Frierdiker Rebbe didn't actually say the Rebbe's name, my son-in-law, but by saying the Medrash that I'm referring to is the Medrash on the Pasuk, not the other Medrash where the name is not mentioned. So Chassidim saw in this a hint that that the Rebbe is the next Rebbe. And also, every time the Rebbe repeated the Maimer, he always mentioned that the Medrash is the one on the Pasuk itself. There's another clip that tells a story that somebody was sitting in the office in Merkis and the phone rang. This was just before Yud Shvat 1951. In other words, a day before the Rebbe officially accepted the Nesius. Phone is ringing. He picked up the phone, and it was the Rebbe. And the Rebbe and the Rebbitzin at that time were living on New York Avenue in an apartment building. 347? 346. The Rebbe asked this bacher to come over. He came over, and the Rebbe asked him to get in touch with a certain doctor, and that when he's online, he should tell the Rebbe. And the Rebbe was sitting with Svarim. Anyway, he got through to the doctor, And the Rebbe spoke to the doctor. He didn't hear what was said. And then the Rebbe asked him to do something because the Rebbe himself was going to go to the hospital to visit a patient. So he talked to the doctor about the patient and then went to visit the patient. So this is the day before he's becoming the Rebbe, which is a huge decision for him. And it was so reluctant to do it, and it was such a Mesiras Nefesh. But what was he busy with the day before? Visiting somebody in the hospital. And then in the Maimer, the Rebbe told the story how the Alter Rebbe went to visit this woman who needed... Her husband had gone off to shul, and she needed somebody to feed her. So, on the one hand, the Maimer says that we are the Deir HaShvi. The yichus, the greatness of the Deir HaShvi, is that it is the seventh from number one. How do you get to be seven? You start with one, and then it becomes two, and then it becomes seven. So when you're the seventh from the Rishon, from the first, that makes you special. But you didn't do anything for that. This is not earned, deserved. It's given. So it seems like the seventh is only special because number one is special. If you can be seven to the number one, that's meaningful or special. On the other hand, the other statement in the Maimer is that there's shtus of sheker, and then there's shtus of emes. That the Mishkan was made out of boards. The word for boards is keresh, kuf resh shin, the same letters as sheker. But it's also the same letters as kesher. So it can either be the klippa or the shtus of unholiness, sheker, or it can be the shtus of kedusha, and then it becomes a kesher. Becomes a connection to the Eibishter. So what is shtus de kedusha? When you go beyond the letter of the law, that's called shtus. Why is it shtus? Because it's logically not necessary. What is shtus that is klippa? You do something that is logically unacceptable. So they're both not logical. Only one is lower than logic, and the other one is higher than logic. What's the connection with being the seventh? When the option is very, very low, shtus the klippa, not regular klippa, but insane klippa, unreasonable klippa, then the alternative has to be unreasonable kedusha. Because you can't fight unreasonable evil with reasonable kedusha. You can't win like that. So you have no choice really. When you're down to the lowest level of klippa, the only solution is the highest level of kedusha. Because you gotta match intensity with intensity. So if the klippa is intensely low, then the only solution is Kedusha that is intensely high. So the seventh generation is special because in order to match the klipa of it, you have to have an unreasonable and unusual Kedusha. So we read in the Shema, V'ahavtas Hashem Elokecha b'chol levavecha b'chol nafshecha u'v'chol me'edecha. B'chol nafshecha means with your Yetzer Hara. B'chol levavecha means with your Yetzer Hara. Get your Yetzer Hara involved also. That's why it's not b'chol libecha, it's b'chol levavecha. Two bases, meaning your Yetzer Tov and your Yetzer Hara. So b'chol levavecha means with both hearts. B'chol nafshecha means giving up your life. Mesiras nefesh. What's b'chol me'edecha? You already gave up your life. What more can you give? So the Gemara says, b'chol me'edecha means your money. Because for some people it's easier to give up their life than to give up their money. But b'chol me'edecha means with all your extreme. With ma'id means extreme, very. Even giving up your life can be in some way reasonable. You live your whole life a certain way, you've dedicated your life to living this way, somebody wants to take it away from you, you refuse. Life isn't worth living without this. So you give up your life. But you still have to make a decision. You have to choose. So Mesiras Nefesh involves a decision. You could have decided not to give up your life. B'chol me'edecha means you are so Jewish that you don't even need to make a decision. You don't even need to think. You're so connected to the Eibishter, there's no choice, there's no thinking, there's no decision necessary. That is called ma'id, very connected. And that's related to the word, where else do you have the word ma'id? Kikare velecha hadavar ma'id. But that is what it says in the first Perek of the Shema. V'ahavta. Now look into V'hoya im Shameya. In V'hoya im Shameya, it doesn't say B'chol me'edecha. It says B'chol levavechem or B'chol nafshechem. It doesn't say B'chol me'edechem. So why is that? The first parsha, which is V'ahavta, that's describing a tzaddik. A tzaddik not only has b'chol levavecha and b'chol nafshecha, he also has b'chol me'edecha. The second parsha, V'hoya, is describing a non-tzaddik. By the non-tzaddik, you don't know whether he's going to do what he's supposed to do or not. That's why V'hoya im Shameya. If you will listen to the Eibishter, this is what's going to happen. Could be that you won't listen because you're not a tzaddik. So since it's describing a non-tzaddik can't get to B'chol me'edecha. The best he can do is B'chol levavecha and B'chol nafshecha. So the Frierdiker Rebbe writes that used to be true. that if you're a tzaddik, you can reach b'chol ma'edecha. Not only levavcha and nafshecha. That used to be. Today, because of the golus that we're in, everyone needs to serve the Eibishter b'chol ma'edecha. Why? Because we can't do b'chol levavcha. I can't get my Yetzer Hara to be good. And b'chol nafshecha, I don't want to give up my life. So because we don't have the levels of b'chol levavcha and b'chol nafshecha, we have only one choice, to do it b'chol me'edecha. In other words, what was once limited to great tzaddikim is today the default position. We have no other choice but to do b'chol me'edecha. Another way of saying it in simple language, in the olden days, certainly when you lived in Eretz Yisrael with a Beis Hamikdash, you had so many reasons to do mitzvahs. You were inspired by the Navi, you were inspired by the miracles in the Beis Hamikdash, just the holy atmosphere of Eretz Yisrael, Yom Tiv, Eilul Regel. I mean, everything inspired you to do what you're supposed to do. Later, in Golus, we lived in ghettos, we lived in Jewish neighborhoods. Everybody was frum. The more frum, the more respect you got. The more you learned, the bigger Talmud Chacham, you were the talk of town. To do an Aveda meant you're going to lose your reputation, a guy who had a store or a shop or a booth in the marketplace didn't work on Shabbos. He couldn't. First of all, nobody's going to shop on Shabbos. Who are you selling to? You're selling to the few non-Jews that were there. And if you do, your reputation is shot. Nobody will shop. Nobody will buy anything from you a whole week. It was not good business to be open on Shabbos. So there were so many ulterior motives. You could be frum for so many different reasons. Today, we don't have those reasons. It's not practical and useful to be frum. Well, unless you live in Crown Heights. And even, one girl said to me last year, she said, I used to be frum because I didn't want to ruin my reputation. But then I thought about, whose opinion do I really care about? And I realized I really don't care. So I lost my reason for being frum. So what are we left with? Any Jew who does a mitzvah today, it's like the mitzvah of the biggest tzaddik in the past. In the past, if you could do a mitzvah without an ulterior motive, you were a tzaddik. Today, why else would you do a mitzvah? Other than b'chol ma'edecha. We have no other reason. So we really can't do a mitzvah for the wrong reason anymore. So any Jew who does a mitzvah today, particularly when you go on Mivtzoyim, and somebody stops for a minute and does a mitzvah, what are they thinking? It's going to help their reputation, and they'll find a good shidduch. Why do they stop to do the mitzvah? Because their Yetzer Hara loves the Eibishter. So this is called Shdus de Kedusha. When the Rebbe first started the Mivtzoyim, it was Mivtza Tefillin, right during the 6-Day War. And the Rebbe didn't really give all the details. He said that it's important that Jews should put on tefillin because when Jews put on tefillin, then the enemy are afraid. So at first, people thought they'll go to the offices where Jews are working, ask them to come to the nearest shul, and put on tefillin with them and daven with them or whatever. Then they found out that the Rebbe's plan was not to go into a shul. It was to do it in the streets, in the office, not in a shul. Dafke, not in a shul. Back then, it seemed like the most ridiculous, crazy thing to do. In the streets? Unheard of. And who would be willing to do that? A guy who's not religious and doesn't put on tefillin all year, and you ask him to put on tefillin in the streets? Nobody's going to do it. But that's what the Rebbe wanted. Dafke in the street. In other words, if you do it in a shul, then it's a reasonable kedusha. The Rebbe wanted an unreasonable. Now, after all these years, putting on tefillin in the streets, in the subway, in the airports, in the phone booths, it's become reasonable. Now we got to come up with something crazier. Something more unreasonable. So this is the shtus of Kedusha. Doing mitzvahs without any reason. Just because a Jew feels Jewish. Not because he worked at it, not because he deserves it. He was born that way, like the Deir Hashvi. So we see in the world today, the unholiness is ridiculous. It used to be. Unholiness was very sensible. Like, for example, in the 1940s, the Yetzer Hara, the Klippa was, you have to go to college, and you have to have an education, and you have to know what's going on in the world, and you have to become a professional, you have to excel at something, you gotta be a mensch. A reasonable Yetzer Hara? An intelligent Yetzer Hara? Even in Russia, communism was a very reasonable klippa. It's, you got to stop taking advantage of the workers. You got to give people equal respect. Everybody should be equal. Nobody is above everybody else. It's such a reasonable, sensible, appealing klippa. Zionism, socialism, sensible things. This will make the world better. This will fix the injustices of the world. It was all very reasonable and therefore convincing. It was hard to argue with. And that's why which Jews became communists? Who became socialists? Who became Zionists? Who went to college? The smartest. Today, the Yetzer Hara, the Klippa of today, is just ridiculous. Self-destructive, no ambitions, no goal, nothing impressive. Just meaningless. Whether it's drugs or... There's nothing reasonable. Talk about the violence. Totally unreasonable. Stabbing, shootings, killings. It's so nonsensical. So if the klipa is so ridiculous, if it's so meaningless, it's so brainless, therefore the kedusha has to be the opposite extreme. It's got to be kedusha beyond anything anybody expected. It's got to be what only a tzaddik used to be able to do, nothing less. So that's what the Maimon is saying for the Der Hashvi. We can't be, moderately okay from, a little from. Not what we're up against. Because the klipa is not a little bad, a little ugly. No. It is very bad and very ugly. So the only way to combat that is to have an equally intense and equally not negotiable kedusha. The good news is that a little bit of light pushes away a lot of darkness. So the light, the kedusha, has to be unreasonable, but a little bit of it can take away a lot of darkness. That's the encouraging good news. But the light that we need today, and a little bit of it, will push away a lot of darkness. The light has to be unreasonable. It has to be the highest kedusha that we never thought we would be able to achieve. And now, it's the only way to go. So this is probably why we were given Hasidus, so much Hasidus, in our generation. I remember when I became bar mitzvah, I went to the Kahos bookstore. It was in a basement across the street on Eastern Parkway. It was a basement. The choice was about 30 books, 30 Svarim. That's all there was. You buy the 30 Svarim, that's it. You have the whole Kahos library. You had everything that was printed on Chassidus, that's it, on one shelf. 30 Svarim. Today, 30 Svarim is not even Likutei Sichos. It's not even Igros Kodesh. There's more Sichos today, Likutei Sichos, volumes of Likutei Sichos. There's more Likutei Sichos today than there was in the entire library. So with my bar mitzvah money, I could buy every Lubavitcher Sefer that there was. And I didn't get much bar mitzvah money. Community was very poor. How many Svarim do we have now? There was never so much Hasidus in the world. In the olden days, a Fabrengen, if you go back to the Alter Rebbe's time, a Fabrengen lasted 25 minutes. With the Nigun. By the Frierdiker Rebbe, on occasion, a Fabrengen would go for hours. It was rare. By the Rebbe, once in a while, a Fabrengen only lasted an hour. The Yom Tov Fabrengens, less than 5 hours? Unheard of. If the Rebbe Fabreng less than 5 hours, everybody got worried. Is the Rebbe not feeling well? What's the matter? And it was all taped during the weekdays. Whoever had that before? Then it was all videoed. Whoever had that before? And it gets printed. Sefer after sefer after sefer, you can't keep up. So why do we get so much Hasidus in our generation, which is the Shvi, which is kind of the end of the cycle? Because the week, 7 days, and then you go back to the first again. So why do we, at the end of the cycle, why do we get to have so much Hasidus? It's unreasonable. That's exactly right. To have Hasidus in the first place was unreasonable. Alter Rebbe had to sit in jail for 53 days to change that rule that Hasidus was not meant to be revealed. Now the Rebbe sends people out on shlichus. A young couple, they don't even know each other very well. I mean, today people sit in kollel for a while. But in the first years, you get married, the next day you leave. You go on shlichus. Where are you going? To a place. What's going to happen there? We'll see. Who's going to pay you? Nobody. When are you coming back? Never. Is this reasonable? This is insane. It was so insane that some of the biggest chassidim refused to allow their kids to go on shlichus. It was just crazy. The Rebbe had to fight for it and demand it and scream about it. Until one day the Rebbe said, that's it. I am not going to mention it again. The time will come when you will beg me to go on shlichus. And of course, that's what happened. So again, unreasonable Kedusha is the only antidote to unreasonable Klippa. When the world is crazy unholy, we have to be crazy holy. But not, crazy. I don't mean crazy. Stopping a person in the street and asking him to do a mitzvah, that's crazy holy. Doing a mitzvah for no reason? You don't even know why you're doing it, it's just if you're supposed to do it, I guess I'll do it. It's a Jewish thing, okay, I'll do it. Shlichus is crazy Kedusha. Even the giant menorah. Huh?
In the cars, yeah.
On the cars. To us, none of this sounds very crazy. Right? We're so used to it. To us it sounds almost normal. It's almost reasonable. If you're going to make a menorah, what are you going to make? A little one? Make a big one. How big? Bigger than the other Chabad house. Now everybody's competing. Biggest menorah in Brooklyn. It's a whole machlekes as to whose menorah is bigger. And how do we know that this is crazy? If you would know how bitterly the Jewish establishment fought against it. So we sit here and we say, what are they, crazy? What have they got against a big menorah? They're not crazy. They're normal. Giant menorahs is crazy. And even frum people complained about it. You're not yetzer the mitzvah. It's too big. It has to be under 20 feet or whatever. Yeah, they're right. They're all right. But these giant menorahs changed the world. Hanukkah became a yontif again. It was a nothing. It was like a Jewish version of that other holiday. Now Hanukkah became Hanukkah. We had an actor, Jewish actor. We hired him to be our guest speaker at a dinner, a fundraising dinner, one year, back in the 70s. He was a pretty popular guy. He had a television show. So when he came, he didn't know anything about Yiddishkeit. He didn't know anything about Chabad. So we said, can we tell you something about Chabad so that you can say it in your performance? He was going to put on a whole show. But, we're paying him. He has to say something about Chabad. So we said, let's sit down and we'll tell you a little bit what Chabad is. He says, leave it to me. I said, no, we got to, leave it to me. All right. So he does this whole show, and it was half funny and half, he had people crying and laughing, whatever. It was good. Then he says, among his jokes, all Yiddish kind of jokes, he says there were two guys, two Jews, were caught by the enemy. And they were put up against the wall, and they were going to be shot. So the enemy guy is counting down. Ready, aim, and one of the Jews says, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. And the other Jew says, Shah, you'll get us in trouble. He says, do you remember when Jews thought like that? That no matter what was going on, you had to, Shah, don't draw attention, keep a low profile, they'll shoot at you. Low profile. Not Chabad. Have you seen the size of their menorahs? That's all he said. And it was perfect. Perfect. He couldn't have said anything better. It changed the world. Because it's crazy. And the only way to make the world better is by being crazy better. And again, I don't mean insane. I don't mean stark raving mad. For the Rebbe to say, we have to teach non-Jews Sheva mitzvahs, this is crazy. We're going to teach the... You know what happens when you try to teach non-Jews? They shoot you. Nope. Rebbe was once so upset at a Fabringen. He was talking about a certain chassid, and he said, you spend days and hours with a non-Jew talking about business, and you never mention Sheva mitzvahs? It's like unthinkable. What does the rest of the world say? What, are you starting to preach to non-Jews? What, are you crazy? It's unheard of. Used to be dangerous. That's crazy holy. Today, getting married like a Jew, that's crazy holy. And that's the only way to get married. Look at what's happening with reasonable marriages. We're in love, we get along, everything's nice, let's get married. Doesn't work. You'd think it all makes sense. So sensible. You date for years, you check each other out for years, you decide that you get along wonderful, everything is good, you get married, bingo, you're divorced. What's going on? So the bottom line is, in the Deir HaShvi, you have to be crazy to be normal. Because normal doesn't work. So a person said, I just want to be normal. What are you, crazy? Normal doesn't work. It's not strong enough. It's not intense enough. It's not big enough. Look at the evil. Are they normal? So what used to be the property of the tzaddik is now everybody's level. And it's the only level. How crazy is it to say, it's our job to bring Mashiach? Is that not crazy? Moshe Rabbeinu couldn't bring Mashiach. David HaMelech couldn't bring Mashiach. The Rambam couldn't bring Mashiach. Rabbi Akiva, Hillel couldn't bring Mashiach. The Baal Shem Tov couldn't bring Mashiach. No, leave it to me. I'll bring Mashiach. Is that not crazy? Then the Rebbe says, I did everything I could do, now it's your job. Oh, really? That's not crazy? And imagine Chassidim saying, oh, really? Yeah, you couldn't, huh? Okay, I'll do it. You out of your mind. The Rebbe says, I couldn't do it. Oh, okay, we'll try. We'll take over, don't worry about it. This is absolutely insane. And somehow, totally miraculously, every little shmendrik runs around saying, I'm bringing Mashiach. I did a mitzvah, I'm bringing Mashiach. 5-year-olds are bringing Mashiach. It's going to be the little kinderlach. And they don't think it's insane. It is. It's totally crazy. And the rest of the Jewish world is so jealous. They're trying to figure out reasonably how we got to where we are. Right? The Reform is always saying, we got to do what Chabad does. They're very successful. What is their secret to success? You know what the secret to success is? We're not normal. They're trying to have the same success in a normal way. Well, good luck. Not going to happen. So last year by the Kinnos, there was a speaker from England. He was the keynote speaker at the banquet. And he told a story about a guy who was married to a non-Jew, and they wanted to cremate him after he died. And somebody called the shliach and said, can you do something to stop? So he went, and the wife was nasty to him and didn't want to hear of anything. And so in the audience that night, there was a writer from California, a journalist. When he got back home, he wrote an article about the Kinnos. Here's what he said. Whatever it was, the other night, I was in a room with 4,000 rabbis. Every one of them has to raise their own money, cover their own budget, deal with the banks, raise money, fundraisers, dinners, parties, mices. They're all in debt. They all have bills to pay. They have activities that they have to take care of. they have responsibilities, and they're sitting there, 4,000 rabbis with problems of their own, and they hear about a Jew in England who is already dead. And the question is, will he be cremated or buried properly? 4,000 rabbis held their breath. So what happened? Yeah, he was cremated. The end of the story was that he was not. He was buried properly. And 4,000 rabbis sighed with relief as if someone had just given them a $50,000 donation. He says, you're wondering what is the success of Chabad? There it is. They're insane. It's crazy. You have your own community, you have your own projects, you have your own bank to cover, you have your own fundraising issues. What are you hearing a story about a Jew you never met and you're never going to meet because the man is dead? And he chose to marry out. He's not really a part of the Jewish community. And his wife doesn't want him buried. She wants him cremated. Why do 4,000 rabbis from all over the world care and even listen to the story? They held their breath. Chas v'sholom, he wasn't cremated, was he? What do you care? You don't even know who we're talking about. That's crazy. That's shtus de kedusha. And what's the proof? This will never happen in any other meeting. If you listen to people, professionals, experts, reasonable, intelligent people, when they get together to talk about Judaism, they talk about statistics. How many Jews are intermarrying and how many Jews are not? How many Jews practice and how many Jews belong to... And if the numbers are impressive, statistically, more Jews are attending synagogue today than in 1975. Everybody's happy. What about one guy who doesn't come to shul? Oh, who cares? Okay, there are some people who don't come to shul, so who cares? We don't know who they are anyway. But here, 4,000 rabbis are worried about a guy they never saw, they'll never see, he already dropped out. Why does anybody care? Because we're insane. Because it's crazy. When you say to somebody, you know, you should be modest and you should be holy and you should be and get married, innocent and pure, and what are you, crazy? What century do you think you're living in? That's crazy. It's not normal, not natural. You're right. So we're crazy. Crazy holy. This woman went home from Beis Chana, and she calls me in a panic that she got home. Her family's not from. She got home and she got into a big fight with her mother. They were talking about changing the kitchen, kosher dishes, whatever, and the mother was a little shocked. But okay, I mean, if you really want, just do me one favor. We'll get the kosher dishes. Just tell me you're not going to cover your hair when you get married. She said, yeah, I will. So the mother said, that's crazy. And they got into a big argument. So now she's calling me, and she says, we were arguing, it was terrible. I said, what should I do? I said, you were arguing? Let's see. Your mother said covering your hair is crazy. And you said what? That it makes sense? That it's not crazy? What were you arguing? Why can't you tell her? It's crazy. It's completely crazy. She said, I know, but I can't tell her that. So why not? Why? Don't insist on being reasonable. What's crazy is crazy. So you should say, yeah, it's crazy. I'm going to try it. But that's crazy. Uh-huh. What? Nobody does anything crazy? They tell a story that there are these guys in California, very rich, two brothers, twins, and they're very tall. And they heard that former President Clinton was in California. They wanted to meet with him. So they were thinking, what should we, how do we introduce ourselves? What should we say? So they said, we want to meet with you. We are the tallest twins in America. They met with him, and they were sitting and talking, and they said, we're the tallest twins in America. And Clinton said, isn't there a basketball team that has two basketball players who are taller than you? They're twins? So they said, yeah, guess we lied. But what? You never lied? And he loved it. Yeah, it's crazy. What, you're not crazy? We are crazy holy. And what are you? Normal? No, you're not. You're crazy unholy. So that's how you take shtus de klipa and turn it into shtus de kedusha. So what is so special about our generation, the Deit HaShvi'i? Kol HaShvi'in Chavivin. What's so special about our generation is that we don't have limits. There are no limits. The Rebbe took all limits away. If it's holy, there's no limits. There's nothing we can't do. There's nothing we're not allowed to do. Like you can't study Kabbalah, it's too holy. You can't put on two pair of tefillin, it's too holy. Nothing is too holy anymore. There are no limits. Yeah, women don't learn Gemara. Women learn Gemara. There are no limits anymore. Children should not learn Chassidus. Children should learn Chassidus. Little girls should light candles. There's no limits. And that's the only way we're going to win. You look at the klipa, they have no limits. That's what's so scary about it. There's no limits. Fly airplanes into buildings? Yeah, why not? I don't want to go into all the gory details, but they have no limits. Say, well, they wouldn't do that. Yeah, they would do that. Cut off people's heads? No. Yeah, they would do that. Put it on video and be proud of it? Yeah, they'll do that. There's no limits. So you're going to be polite and ask them to please behave themselves? This is going to work? If there's no limit to the klipa, there has to be no limit to the kedusha. So no fear, no apologies, no shame, and no false humility. And that's why when Mashiach comes, and he builds the Beis HaMikdash, and he's standing on the roof of the Beis HaMikdash, he's going to have to tell us that we're not in Golus anymore. Because we won't know. Because we're so humble. And it's not good. can't be so humble. It's not a true humility. Every little kid today who is influenced by the Rebbe knows that he or she can change the world. No false humility. Yes, the whole world depends on us. If we do what we're supposed to do, we change the world. We out-crazy the crazy. So we have to take that message from the Rebbe. B'chol ma'odecha, there are no limits. The first time they lit a menorah in Washington at the White House, it was the middle of Hanukkah, so they were going to light 2 candles or 3 candles, whatever it was. And the president at the time said, an empty menorah doesn't look good. So you're going to light 3 candles and the rest is going to be empty. It looks unfinished. Light all 7. All 8. Light all 8. They asked the Rebbe. The Rebbe said, absolutely not. Today is the 3rd night of Hanukkah, you light 3. But the president, he's just a president. Don't be so reasonable. Tell him tonight is 3, we'll light 3. But wouldn't it look better for the pictures when, the photo option, it'll look the full. One of the presidents wanted to call the Rebbe on his birthday. I mean, how many people get a request from the White House? Can the president please speak to you? The Rebbe said no. No, on a birthday you're supposed to be introspective and, no, some other time. This is crazy. And of course, it started with the Frierdiker Rebbe. Communism took over Russia. Stalin was a dictator that everyone was terrified of. The Rebbe said, "Nah, he's got to go. Now we got to beat him." And exactly who is your army that you're going to beat Stalin with? Mendel, Hendel, Fendel, whatever. That's it. We are going to beat Stalin. It's crazy. But he did. Now the joke is that if you want an appointment to Rabbi Lazar, you have to ask Putin to arrange it for you. It's only half funny. There's some truth to it. When they met on Hanukkah, Putin told him that it's Hanukkah today, and that's a time when there's victory over the. So Putin is preaching about Hanukkah, which tells you 2 things: Hanukkah has really become a yontif, and communism. So, it's Rosh Hashanah for his kashrus, and today we have to become a kusha to the Rebbe and be the Deir Hashvi. Don't be reasonably good. Be amazingly good. And who are you to be such a tzaddik? Call me crazy. Fine, I'm crazy. Sedei Lashvi, what do you want? It's the only way to be. So, the final thing in the Maimed is that we have to bring the Shechina down lemata. We have to bring the Shechina down lemata. How does that happen? How do we know that it is happening? How will we know when it already happened? Bringing the Shechina down lamata means that this idea or this attitude that if you do a mitzvah, it's because you're frum. It's like a special project. If you're religious, if you're frum, if you're spiritual, if you're holy, then you do these holy things. Then the Shechina is not lamata. But when the time comes and we get over that, nobody does mitzvahs because they're holy or because they're frum or religious. You do mitzvahs because that's the only way that the world functions. It was created for mitzvahs. It was created to be a dira b'tachtenim. So it is. So why am I doing mitzvahs? Why am I being so holy? It's not holy. It's just normal. When we break that separation between heaven and earth, you see a person putting on tefillin, oh, he's religious. Then the Shechina has not come down lamata. A girl wears a skirt, oh, you're religious. Then the Shechina is still in heaven. When it stops being a religion and becomes the only right way to be, then we know that the Shechina has come down lamata. So when a person says, I'm not sure I want to be religious, don't be. Don't become religious. By becoming religious, you're pushing the Shechina away. You're putting him into heaven. If I do that, then I'll be religious, right? No. It's not a religion. It's reality. That's our goal. That everything it says in Torah should simply become the reality. Not special, not unusual. You don't get any special credit for it. Don't think you're so different. It's just the reality of the world. Today we have two realities. We have a heavenly reality, that's the Shechina, and then we have an earthly reality, and the Shechina is not here. Our job is to bring the Shechina down lamata. Lamata means nobody thinks it's unusual. It's just reality. So people were upset that the Rebbe, or Chabad, argued that the big menorah can legally stand on government property and it doesn't violate the separation of church and state because the menorah is not a religious object. It's a symbol of the victory of good over evil. So some of the frum people got so upset. What are you doing? You're reducing the menorah to a symbol. The menorah is holy. It's a mitzvah. And Chabad all of a sudden, no, it's not a mitzvah, it's just a... What are you doing? The point of the argument is, of course it's a mitzvah. But what is the mitzvah? of Hanukkah. The mitzvah of Hanukkah is to show the world the nest that happened. So what does it mean to show the world? To make it normal. To bring it down lamata. Everyone should know that when you need oil, it'll burn for 8 days. So the whole point of Hanukkah is stop treating it like a miracle from heaven. That's the norm. That good always wins over evil. That's just reality. That's our job in the Dei Hashvi'i. The scientists say that the world is 15 billion years old. And we say it's 5,000 years old. Come on, get real. What's real? What's real? The world is 5,000 years old. That's the world. That's reality. 15 billion years. The whole argument. Well, but science says, get real. Tell you it is real. Science is playing games. Some guy who's 20 years old, who went to read a few books, is going to tell you what happened 13 billion years ago, and you're taking this seriously? Get real. Tell you it is simply real. Emes. That's what we have to introduce to this world. So in our own lives, who's a makusha? Are you a makusha? Do you have hiskashrus? Oh, knock it off. I don't even know what the word means. There's a Rebbe, and he teaches us how to live. What else you want to know? Oh, so you're a makusha. Stop it. I'm a makusha. You're a makusha. I'm the biggest makusha. The whole world needs to know what the Lubavitcher Rebbe says because he's the only one who knows the truth. Well, that sounds like a makusha. Why do you have to have a title? I was in Argentina. I met the Minister of Health. Not a Jewish guy. He heard a few clips of Fabrengens from the Rebbe, and he runs around telling people, you got to listen to the Lubavitcher Rebbe. He says it in Spanish. Oh, he's a makusher. He doesn't think he's a makusha. He just thinks you should listen to the Lubavitcher Rebbe. Why? Because the Lubavitcher Rebbe knows what he's talking about. So that's like a religious experience? It's just reality. That's what's going to happen when Mashiach comes. Everything in Torah will simply be the reality. Will we be holy? Stop it. Why do you want to be holy when you can be real? When Mashiach comes, everyone will be doing mitzvahs and it'll be real. Oh, so everyone's going to be religious? Can you stop that already? Nobody's becoming religious. Elokus and Shechina is coming down lamata. We're not going up. We're not becoming more religious, more heavenly, more spiritual. Those days are gone. Every day the Shechina comes down further. That's the job of the Dei Hashvi'i. The ladder that stands on earth and reaches into heaven, what's the important part? The part that stands on earth or the part that reaches into heaven? It used to be, it goes all the way up to heaven. You want to climb the ladder? I was like, what? Are you on top of the ladder? Get back down here. What are you kriching the Himmel? The job is here. The Shechina is coming here. What are you going to heaven for? You're going to go to heaven, there's nobody there. The Eibishter is here. Nobody lives in heaven anymore. So what does it mean that the Shekhinah is here? The Shekhinah is here means everything holy and kosher and Torah and Chassidus, it's all real. It's all the nature of the world. So you go on a shidduch and you say, well, what's he like? Is he chassidish? Oh, yeah. He says chitas and all that stuff. So, wow. Yeah, he's chassidish. This is not the Deir HaShvi. He says chitas, so he's chassidish? If he says chitas, then he's normal. What else is good about him? What's good about you? A bacher who says chitas is not chassidish. He's normal.
What do you define as chassidish?
I have no idea. People get into this. Is he frum or is he chassidish? I mean, you can be chassidish without being frum. You can be frum without being chassidish. You know what this sounds like? On campus. You can be a woman in your body, but a man, or you can be a man and really a woman. What are you babbling about? Nothing is real? You can't be frum but not chassidish. And you can't be chassidish but not frum. And you can't be normal without mitzvahs. It's not an option anymore. The Shekhinah has come down lamata. If you're doing what you're supposed to do, that's just normal. It doesn't make you a tzaddik, it doesn't make you a makusha, it doesn't make you a chassid, it doesn't make you a frum. That's just normal. How crazy is that? Expect some very, very exciting, positive, godly developments. Because that's where the world is going. And if you can pitch in and do a little to help, that's the right thing to do. Because the Shekhinah is coming. You don't want to be in the way. Prevent the Shekhinah from coming. So it's a Rosh Hashanah for his kashrus. The Rebbe's vision has become our vision. We simply see the world the way the Rebbe did, which is amazing, amazingly good. Little kids walk around talking about a reality that the biggest Talmidei Chachamim of 3 generations ago could not imagine. So there's a lot of good news. I would just like to be part of that good news and not a bystander. So don't be a spectator. Get involved. Make the world a little holier. Make yourself a little holier. It's just what's happening. It's the inevitable, and it's good. You agree?
There's no other way.
There's no other way. So I remember when 770 was that big, and when all the Chassidim came in from all over the world, That room was crowded. That's all. And the Rebbe was saying, we have to change the world. And I looked around. Who's going to change the world? This 70-year-old guy who doesn't speak English? This guy who just fell asleep in the middle of the sikh? Who's going to change the world? Who's the Rebbe talking to? How do you have no army, but you're going to change the world? So what did it say about Avraham beat up the 4 kings who beat up the 5 kings? With whom? With him and 2 guys? Yeah, we'll go beat him up. That's how crazy it sounded. A couple of guys who barely made it out of Russia, who are sitting there trying to make a few dollars to support themselves. Yeah, we're gonna change the world. That's why the Rebbe went straight to the young people. The old people were like, yeah. We'll change the world, yeah. Okay, go back to sleep. In a story, there was a chassid in Russia. After the Frierdiker Rebbe left, they divided up responsibilities among chassidim. Who's in charge of getting people out? Who's in charge of supporting the wives of those chassidim who were sent to Siberia? Who's in charge of making the underground chadarim? They divided up responsibilities. There was one chassid who was responsible for the cheder network. He came to a certain town, and he got the people together and said, come on, let's get the kids together, let's teach the kids. There were not Lubavitchers in this town. But they got together kids and they started a cheder underground, and he became the teacher. But he didn't want to stay there. He had to go on and open other chadarim. That was not his job to be a melamed. But there was nobody else. So he became the melamed. So of course, inevitably, he ended up teaching the kids Chassidus. One of the parents came to him and said, "Excuse me, but we're not Chabad, you know. What are you doing, teaching our children Chabad Chassidus?" So he said, "You're right. I shouldn't be the teacher. Give me a young man from your community. Let him take over. I'll send money from wherever the office was, and fine, you teach him your. I'd love to leave." In those days, they did not allow a married man to be a teacher, because if he got caught, that means that his whole family will suffer. So only Bachrim were allowed to teach. So when he said this to the man from the community, he said, "Pick a Bachar of yours and make him the teacher, I'll leave." He said, "You can't make a teacher. You have to know something. You have to know how to learn." He said, "What do you mean know how to learn?" Pasuk Chumash and a Mishnah. You don't have anyone who can. And by that time already, all the non-Lubavitcher Bachrim were assimilated communists. So they didn't have a Bachar who could teach. So, but he said to them, you have nobody who could. He said, "Yeah, but even if we find somebody, we don't have any money. We can't support this." So he said, "I'll send you the money. I'll send you more money than they're paying me. Just find somebody to do it." So the guy said, "It's not so easy, it's Mesiras Nefesh. To teach, you're risking your life." So this chassid said to him, "Hey, when it comes to having somebody who knows how to learn, you don't have. Money to support the cheder, you don't have. Mesiras Nefesh, you're not up to. You have a bed?" Go to sleep. Like, who are we dealing with here? We do things that are impossible, and it's normal. Normal. If you think you can't do it and you think it's too big and it's too impossible, so you have a bed, go to sleep. Leave the job to the big boys. So, we have to bring the Shekhinah down to earth. That's just a job. Don't get excited. Don't think that sounds very spiritual. No, it's just our job. We're the Deir Hashvi. So we got to do it. So don't be a spectator. Don't be intimidated. Do your share.